This is All India Radio, Power of Listening. Under this series, tonight we take you on a journey to the world of yet another magnificent facet of the traditional Indian knowledge systems. I'm Manoj Mainkar. In today's episode, we bring you the first part focusing on trade and commerce in ancient India. This program is scripted by Neha Tripathi, and the expert on the show is Dr. Dhananjay Dwivedi, Assistant Professor, Department of Sanskrit, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee University, Ranchi, Jharkhand. Stay tuned.
जहाँ डाल डाल पर सोने की चिड़िया करती है बसेरा, वो भारत देश है मेरा, वो भारत देश है मेरा.
This is a song that all of us have grown up listening to. India is called the Golden Sparrow because of her abundance of culture and tradition, rich heritage, breathtaking art and architecture, abundant raw materials, and availability of precious stones. This formed the basis of trade and commerce practices in ancient times. India's trade in spices, perfumes, valuable stones, jewelry, textiles, silk, muslin, and gold in return prompted the sobriquet, the Golden Sparrow. In today's episode, we'll discuss the concept of trade and commerce and how scientific the approach was in ancient India. In Vedic literature, we find several references of trade and commerce. Trade is defined today as the general marketplace of buying and selling goods. This can also be done as an act of exchanging one item for another. It is the way you make a living. Since transactions are consensual, trade is generally considered to benefit both parties. It seems to function this way from ancient times. But when was the first time in ancient India that the concept of trade came into being, and how it was defined in the early era? We have with us Dr. Dhananjay Dwivedi, Assistant Professor, Department of Sanskrit at Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee University, Ranchi.
Trade is a natural sequel to industry, since industrial product must look for markets for its disposal. The industrial advance in ancient India was accompanied by the development of an intensive inland and foreign trade as well as the rise of overseas trade. India's maritime trade activities are as old as Vedic civilization, followed by the era of Ramayana, Mahabharata and Purana, and so on so forth. The antiquity of Indian trade with foreign countries is an established fact by history. Indian overland and overseas trade and commerce must have been a very powerful factor in linking up to race, nation to nation, and culture to culture. As mentioned in Rigveda, the merchants had become important, which is clear from following lines. As merchants desirous of wealth surrounded the sea, so do the priests surround the Indra.
So, during the Vedic period, people were very diligent in doing all sorts of trading and entrepreneurial activities. In ancient India, they had the support of diversity in products that could be sold or bought. These included food grains, fruits, vegetables, spices, nuts, stones, gems, metals, etc. They initiated the idea of spreading the surplus to other parts of the country and outside the country as well. But why did our ancient civilizations feel the need for trade? Dr. Dhananjay Dwivedi observes,
Trade is a natural corollary of industry, and it is the main channel of distribution of agricultural and industrial product. Trade had a very good effect on the life and culture of Indian people. People from one part to another within the country or abroad depend to some extent on the mutual contribution of the products of the other. Starting from Vedic period and onwards, India had commercial relations with various countries round the globe. In ancient times, India became a veritable citadel of international commerce. It goes without saying that, be it an individual or a group or nation, wealth is necessary to survive. This fact has been established in our scriptures time and again. Earth, that is, material wealth, occupies the second position amongst the fourfold value of life. It is highly vital for every human being as it is a means of happiness and enjoyment irrespective of caste and creed. The significance of wealth is well imagined from prayers sung by the worshippers for obtaining wealth. Prajapatena tvadetanyanyo vishwajatani parita babhuva yat kamaste juhumastanno astu vayam syam patayorainam. No other than you, Prajapati, has given way of life to all things. May that object of our desires for which we sacrifice to you be ours. May we be the possessors of riches. The economic philosophy of Vedas suggested an impartial sharing of food and wealth. A mantra of Rig Veda describes that person who eats alone is nothing but a sinner. Kevalagho bhavati kevaladi. Going by the Vedic literature, it seems quite obvious that guiding code for the well-off life related to the ownership of wealth was essentially moral and ethical. The Vedic seers, knowing the importance of wealth in leading a satisfactory and comfortable life, had established certain rules and restrictions on its attainment. It is pertinent to point out that the people of Vedic period longed for the wealth which could only be earned by judicious means. Tvam dehi sahasrinam raim no droghena vachasa satyamagne. Trade and commerce are considered to be an important source for attaining wealth. Hence, the concept of trade and commerce developed in ancient India by leaps and bounds. Here it would not be out of context to mention that the traders had long formed a separate class. They enhanced the country's wealth by means of foreign trade, and considering this, Kamandaka advises the king specially to patronize the trading class. Thus, in Mrichakatika, Madanika refers to a merchant youth who has earned an ample fortune by visiting many countries.
So, this is not only meant for consumption, but also to earn some more income. For making a livelihood, it was important to give and take things or buy and sell things. We've mentioned a few names here, but the list has to be long and reasonable at the same time. India has been rich in the production of agricultural goods. So, what were the agricultural products sold in those times?
Going by the Vedic literature, it is quite evident that agriculture has been treated as source of affluence and sustenance. Vedic Rishi says, Asme vo astvindriyamasme nrimnamut kratarasme varachasi santuvaha Namo matre prithivyai namo matre prithivya iyam teradyantashi yamano dhruvoshi dharunah krishyai tva kshemaya tva yayyai tva poshaya tva. I enjoin thee for agriculture, advancement, wealth, and prosperity. May food, greens be produced from this venerable earth. May the worthy science of geology be studied, and water and food grain produced thereby from the earth. May our physical force, wealth, wisdom, and knowledge be for your service. In the Vedic period, agriculture was the chief livelihood of people. The term Krishi occurs in the Rig Veda quite number of times. It gives grain, strength, and lustre. The Akashvani of Rig Veda considers agriculture to be the best of all occupations and advises to give up gambling and take to farming for the welfare of the family. Akshairma divyaha krishimit krishashva vitteramashva bahumanyamanaha. Giving serious attention to my advice, play not with dice and pursue agriculture and be delighted in wealth so acquired. According to Yajurveda, some of agriculture products which were propagated and sold were vrihi, yava, masha, tila, mudga, khalva, priyangu, anu, shyamak, nivar, godhum, and masur. According to Atharvaveda, certain herbs were also propagated and used for medicinal purposes. Some of them are Somalata, Apamarga, Pippali, Prishniparni, Munja, Dashavriksha, Khadir, Plaksha, Bilva, Arjun, Brahmi, Guggulu, etc.
Ours is an agrarian economy. So was it the same case in that era as well? When our ancient civilization was learning the art of trade and commerce? How did agriculture and trade go hand in hand in ancient times? Dr. Dhananjay Vasudeo Dwivedi observes.
Progress and development of trade and commerce, since agriculture cannot be imagined. While food grains were directly related to human survival, byproducts of these food grains and herbs were used in different ways by mankind. Food grains were exchanged with other consumable items. Surplus agriculture produce was handed over to the traders and merchants in the towns, and then was dispatched to trade centers in other parts of the country or exported to other countries. In effect, agriculture formed an important basis for the commercial production. Of course, in the early period of commerce, the scope of agricultural produce was limited and mostly contributed subsist economy. But later in Vedic period, when agriculture became a specialized profession, the produce of agriculture also became the article of trade. In the Buddhist literature and inscriptions, we find definite mention of dealers who traded in all kinds of grains. But it may be noted that food grains were mostly the commodities of local trade. There were some other kinds of agriculture produce like fiber growing plants, sugarcane, wine plants, oil seeds, the plants producing coloring, ingredients, etc., which were of greater importance as commodities than the food grains, and most of them supplied raw materials for the manufacture of articles of art and industry. The imported merchandise was distributed by the same machinery working in the opposite direction. Hence, the agriculture and trade went hand in hand in ancient times.
What were the other things that were used for trade and commerce, and which were the ones that helped earn maximum profits? According to Dr. Dhananjay Vasudev Dwivedi,
many industries were developed in ancient times, and they were quite significant for trade and commerce and earning profits. Creativeness is the product of human mind, and industry develops on creativeness. This creativeness of mind made Aryans to invent several cottage industries like spinning and weaving, metals and metallurgy, leather, woodwork, pottery, plating, etc. Vedic economy was an agricultural economy, and cottage industries were known as complementary and supplementary to agriculture. Here are some of the cottage industries. Textile industry was highly developed in the Vedic period and was recognized as an important source of income. People used to weave cloth for themselves as well as for others. It is evident from the references scattered throughout the Vedic texts that people were very familiar with techniques of spinning and weaving. Dresses have played a very important role in increasing physical beauty. In Vedic tradition, we have copious references to the costumes which were put on in different seasons and on various occasions. We come across in the Vedic literature names of various garments which were worn by the people in that age. We have also references to many materials used in making cloth. In the Rigveda, it is said that woolen clothes were woven with a pushan. Words like otu, tantu, tantra, veman, prachinatana, vaya are the clear evidence of the fact that the process of weaving clothes was fully in vogue in Vedic age. The adornment and embroidery of clothes were also practiced. Three kinds of clothes have been mentioned in Atharva Veda, viz. Cotton, silken and woolen. The words Vayasas is used for cotton clothes and Tarpya for the silken. Silken cloth was prepared from the fibers of the plant known Tripa.
It will be interesting to know about metals and their trade in those days. Dr. Dwivedi explains.
From very early period, Aryans were familiar with metals and their uses. Many people adopted metal work as their source of livelihood. Generally, 5 to 6 metals were known to the people of Vedic times, as it is clear from references scattered through the Vedic literature. Hiranya, Ayasha, Rajata, Loha, Shisha, Trapu. In Yajurveda, 6 metals have been mentioned as Hiranya, Ayasha, Shyama, Loha, Shisha and Trapu. Here it has been said that the sacrificer enriches himself in these metals by performing sacrifice. Ashma chame, mritika chame, girayaschame, parvataschame, shiktaschame, vanaspatayaschame, Hiranyam chame, ayashchame, syamam chame, loham chame, shisham chame, trapu chame, jagyena kalpantam. Among the metals, Hiranya, gold, is frequently referred to in the Vedic texts, and this shows that Aryans considered gold very valuable. It was always associated with gods. Gold, being a sun metal, is said to be originated from fire. The Atharva Veda mentions gold very frequently. It was considered to be very valuable metal. According to Atharva Veda, technique of extracting gold from mining developed in Vedic India. In a mantra of Taittiriya Samhita, cleansing of gold is described. The Shatapatha Brahmana too mentions that gold was extracted from ores by burning them in fire. Different ornaments were made of gold. Necklaces, earrings, and cups were made of it. Sometimes chariots were also adorned with gold. In Rigveda, Ashwin's sky-touching chariot is described as having a golden seat, golden reins, golden supporting shaft, golden axle, and golden wheels. At several places in Vedic texts, poets have shown the people anxiousness to possess gold. In Rigveda, Pushan is said to have golden vessels by which he navigates within the ocean firmament. Gold was recognized as a medium of exchange. The words Ashta, Prud, and Shataman, denoting units of exchange, are frequently mentioned in Vedic texts. Silver also finds mention in Vedic literature. Utensils were prepared of silver in Vedic India. According to Vedic literature, copper and iron were also used frequently for economic purposes. Ayas has been used for iron and copper. The Atharvaved divides into two. Lohitayas has been used for copper and Syamayas for iron. In the Yajurved, the blacksmith who heats iron etc. has been Ayasatap. Iron tipped arrows, iron pillared chariots of Mitra and Varun, iron teeth of Maruts, the mid-air deities, iron vessels are mentioned in Vedic literature. Coins such as Nishka, Man, Shataman, Krishnala, etc. were minted from metals.
On the preferred ornaments then, Dr. Dwivedi says,
Though the term Alankara in the sense of ornaments is noted in post-Samhita period, but there are various types of ornaments mentioned in the Samhitas. The word Alankara or Alankrita is found in Atharvaved and Chandogyopanishad. The ornaments for the body starts from the head down to the feet, i.e., head ornaments, ear ornaments, neck and chest ornaments, waist ornaments, and feet ornaments. There are number of head ornaments mentioned in Vedic texts. The name of these ornaments are Stuka, Kumbha, Kurira, Opasha, Sringa, and Tirta, etc. Like head ornaments, the description of ear ornaments also found in Vedic literature. Among the major ear ornaments of the Vedic period, special mention be made of Pravrata, Pravratya, Hiranyakarnsa, Sucharka, Pravepa, etc.
what were the woodwork related activities? Dr. Dwivedi explains.
Woodwork was largely developed as an industry in Vedic age. It was accepted as the most important source of income. Aryans were predominantly agriculturalists and they needed implements to cultivate the land and vehicles for carrying their crops from the fields. It is clear from the references scattered throughout the Vedic texts that people were much interested in making chariots. Rigveda mentions yoking of 500 chariots together. By checking a large number of references to chariot making in Vedic literature, it seems that this work was recognized as an independent industry. The carpenter was well known to the people as it is indicated in several references. Household and sacrificial utensils such as dhruva, juhu, sruva, udach, chamsham, etc. were also made of wood. In Yajurveda, a list of utensils required in performing a sacrifice is also given as Vayavya, Dronakalash, Gravana, Adhishramana, Putabhrit, and Adhyavaniya. In Vedic literature, we get references to the furniture articles made up of wood. According to Satpath Brahman, it was an elaborate seat made up of wood, perfect and joined with straps. Prosht, Talp, Shayan, Upastaran, Upadhan denote the furniture known to Vedic India. Besides, the houses were also made of the wood. Woodcraft was also indispensable for agricultural and transportation purposes, along with chariot making. Boats and ships made of wood are frequently mentioned in the Vedic literature, and the art of shipbuilding was so common to the people that the sacrificial rite was compared to shipbuilding. The leather industry was at the peak of development in Vedic age. Several people were engaged in leather work, earning their livelihood. They made various articles of leather for their use. The word Charman, denoting hide, is a common expression from Rig Veda onwards. The leatherer manufactured various articles like bowstrings, thongs to fasten the parts of chariots, reins of horses, etc. Articles of protection for warriors in battle were also prepared by the leatherer. Besides, drums for war purposes were also manufactured by the leatherer.
Cosmetics too have a long history. How was it during ancient times?
In ancient India, cosmetic was limited to use of silk, flower garlands and gandha, sandal paste to beautify the persons. The word Sugandhi, well perfumed, is used twice in Rigveda in connection with Agni and Rudra, who is also form of Agni. The word Gandha is also found in Taittiriya Samhita and Maitrayani Samhita. References to pottery indicate that this art was also well known to the Aryans. They used to manufacture pots for their domestic use as well as for sacrificial purposes. Moreover, pottery was recognized as a source of income. Kalash and kumbha were jars and pots respectively and made of clay or some metal. The word kulal, denoting a potter, occurs in Yajurveda. Among many other things, trade of medicine was quite significant. Although some important drugs were collected and kept by physicians themselves, others were dealt with and supplied by merchants and shopkeepers. विविधौषधिराधरा भिषजः भैषज सामग्री संपादन व्यग्र समग्र व्यवहारिणी. Some drugs were imported from other countries as well. There was enough contact with the foreign lands.
Trade and commerce in ancient India. You heard the 44th episode of our all-new series on traditional Indian knowledge systems, Power of Listening. This was the first part on the theme. This program was scripted by Neha Tripathi, science communicator and writer. The expert on the show was Dr. Dhananjay Vasudeo Dwivedi, Assistant Professor, Department of Sanskrit, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee University, Ranchi, Jharkhand. This was the first part of the talk on this theme, Trade and Commerce in Ancient India. We hope you enjoyed it. This episode was produced by Vinod Kumar. Special thanks to AIR Ranchi and Randheer Thakur for their contributions. This episode is also available on our official YouTube channel, Akashvani AIR. Be there on the 5th of August, same time, same frequencies. This is Manoj Mainkar signing off from Delhi. Bye for now.